I have lived on Sycamore Court in a suburb of Nashville, Tennessee for 11 years. It is the kind of street that people describe when they're explaining what they wanted when they moved to the suburbs. Wide sidewalks, oak trees old enough to have opinions, neighbors who wave from driveways. We had a 4th of July block party every year. We had a Facebook group where people posted about lost cats and recommended plumbers. It was, by every visible measure, the kind of street where nothing happened. I am going to tell you about the thing that happened. His name was Gary. I'll call him Gary because that is not his actual name, but it's close enough in feel. A solid, unremarkable American name for a solid, unremarkable-seeming man. Gary moved in next door to me in the spring of 2014. He was 53, recently divorced, worked in facilities management for a hospital system. He had a grown son in Colorado he mentioned occasionally, and a yellow Labrador named Bucket, who was so gentle and ridiculous that half the street fell in love with him before they'd properly met Gary. Gary was helpful in the specific way that some men of a certain generation are helpful. He noticed things that needed doing and did them without being asked. The first winter after he moved in, he shoveled my driveway after a snowstorm before I was awake. He helped my then-husband move a refrigerator. He brought my daughter a card on her birthday because he'd heard us talking about it over the fence, which at the time I found touching, and now I find... I'll come back to that. The man who disappeared was named Marcus. He lived 4 houses down on the opposite side of the street, a single man in his early 40s who worked in IT and kept to himself in a friendly enough way. He'd wave, he'd chat at the block party, but he wasn't someone who became close with neighbors. I knew him the way you know the person 4 houses down. I knew his car. I knew he had a sister who visited sometimes. I knew he was quiet. In September of 2016, Marcus did not come to get his mail for several days. His car sat in the same spot. His lights didn't come on at night. His sister called the police after she couldn't reach him for a week. Officers did a welfare check, found the house locked and empty, and opened a missing persons investigation. The street absorbed this with the specific cocktail of concern and excitement that a neighborhood produces when something goes wrong inside it. People talked over fences, theories developed. Marcus had seemed stressed lately, someone said, though no one could say exactly what that meant when pressed. He'd mentioned wanting to travel, someone else remembered, though they couldn't say where. His sister gave interviews to the local news that were heartbreaking in the specific way that missing persons coverage always is. A woman holding a photo and asking, with a composure that must have cost her everything, if anyone knew anything. Nobody knew anything, or so we believed. Detectives came through the neighborhood over the following weeks. I was interviewed twice, a standard canvass of residents, questions about whether I'd noticed anything unusual, whether Marcus had seemed different, whether I'd seen any unfamiliar vehicles. I told them what I knew, which was almost nothing. They thanked me, gave me a card, moved on. Gary was interviewed too. I know this because I saw the detective's car in his driveway one afternoon and asked him about it later, the way neighbors do, and he said they were just talking to everyone on the street. He seemed untroubled by it. He offered me a beer, which I declined because it was 11 in the morning, and he laughed and said something about it being 5 o'clock somewhere, which is such an ordinary thing to say that I'm almost embarrassed to remember it. The investigation went quiet after several months. Marcus's case joined the dim archive of unresolved disappearances, occasionally referenced in a local think piece about cold cases, occasionally reappearing in his sister's social media posts on the anniversary of when he'd last been seen. The street returned to its rhythms. The block party happened again. Somebody's cat was found. I got divorced in 2018. Unrelated, my own separate disaster, and Gary was, during that period, a steady presence in the background of my life. He watched my house when I visited my parents. He helped me haul a broken piece of furniture to the curb. He was the person I called when my water heater made a noise I didn't recognize at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, and he came over in 5 minutes in his slippers and told me it was fine, and I believed him. I brought him casseroles. When his dog Bucket died in 2019, I made him a lasagna and left it on his porch with a card. He texted me to say it was the best lasagna he'd ever eaten and that Bucket would have wanted him to eat well. I thought about that text quite a lot. The thing that broke it open had nothing to do with our street. Gary had grown up in a town in Kentucky, about 3 hours away. In 2020, during the pandemic, a cold case unit in that county reopened an investigation into the disappearance of a woman named Cheryl, who had gone missing in 1998. A new investigator, working through old evidence with updated forensic tools, developed DNA from material that had been collected at the time but never fully processed. The DNA matched Gary. I did not know any of this when it was happening. I found out the way most people find out things now, in a fragmented and disorienting sequence, beginning with a text from a neighbor that just said, "Have you seen the news?" and a link that took me to a local Nashville affiliate story about a man arrested in connection with a 1998 homicide in Kentucky. The photograph in the article was Gary. I sat on my kitchen floor. I don't know for how long. What followed over the subsequent weeks and months was a process of revelation that I can only describe as the systematic dismantling of a reality I had been living inside, because Gary's arrest for Cheryl's murder opened a review of other unsolved cases in regions where he had lived and worked, and Marcus, quiet Marcus, 4 houses down, whose sister had been holding a photo on the local news for 4 years, Marcus became part of that review. I will not detail the evidence here. I will say that investigators determined with a confidence that produced a charge and later a conviction that Gary killed Marcus in August of 2016, and that Marcus's remains were found in a location I will not specify because his sister has asked that certain details of the recovery not be amplified, and I respect that completely. What I will tell you is what I learned about the timeline. Gary killed Marcus sometime in the 3rd week of August 2016. The block party that year had been in late July. I have a photograph from that block party. I found it while going through old pictures after his arrest, and I have not deleted it because I cannot decide what to do with it, in which Gary is standing next to Marcus, both of them holding red plastic cups, both of them smiling. Gary's arm is not quite around Marcus's shoulder, but it's close, the body language of 2 men who are comfortable enough to stand that near each other. 3 weeks after that photograph was taken, Marcus was gone. And for the following 4 years, Gary mowed his lawn, walked Bucket, shoveled my driveway, ate my lasagna, and texted me that Bucket would have wanted him to eat well. I have tried, with the help of a therapist I started seeing about 6 months after the arrest, to organize what I feel about this into something coherent. The closest I have come is this. The thing that disturbs me most is not the violence itself, which is its own category of horror that I cannot fully approach, but the performance, the sustained, continuous, apparently effortless performance of being a normal neighbor that Gary maintained for years while knowing what he knew. There was no crack in it. That's what I keep returning to. There was no moment in 4 years of casual proximity where I felt anything that I would now classify as a warning. He was warm. He was helpful. He remembered things, my daughter's birthday, the brand of beer my ex-husband drank, the fact that I took my coffee black. He paid attention to people. My therapist says that's not incidental, that the attention, the noticing, is part of the mechanism. that the performance of warmth is more sustainable when it's built on genuine observation of people, even if the person doing the observing is capable of terrible things. That it is possible to be both a person who brings a lasagna and a person who kills someone, and that the comfort we take from assuming those things cannot coexist in one person is the comfort of a false belief. I do not find this comforting, but I believe it. I testified at the Marcus-related proceedings, not as a key witness, I had nothing evidentiary to offer, but as a character context witness in a way that I don't fully understand even now. Sitting in that room and being asked questions about Gary's behavior as a neighbor, watching lawyers hold up that block party photograph, I have been in difficult rooms in my life, but that room had a specific quality of wrongness that I have not experienced elsewhere. Marcus's sister was there. We had never met before. She is a small woman with her brother's eyes, and during a recess she came and stood next to me in the hallway without saying anything for a moment, and then she said, "You didn't know." It wasn't a question, it wasn't absolution either, it was something in between, a statement of fact delivered with a grace I did not deserve and have not forgotten. "I didn't know," I said. She nodded. She went back into the room. Gary is in prison. He will die there, given his age and his sentences. I have not looked at any interviews he may have given, any statements, any of the secondary coverage that emerged after the convictions. I made a decision early on that his explanations, whatever architecture of justification he had constructed inside himself, were not something I needed access to. My therapist supported this decision. I still live on Sycamore Court. People ask me why, and the honest answer is that I refuse to let what happened here erase 11 years of a life I built here. My daughter grew up on this street. My roots are here. Gary does not get to take the street from me by having committed violence on it. But I will tell you that I do not find the neighborhood's ordinariness comforting in the way I once did. When I see a new neighbor being particularly helpful, noticing things, offering to assist, remembering small details, I feel something move through me that I have to consciously manage. I know that it is irrational to treat kindness as a signal of danger. I know that the vast majority of people who shovel your driveway and bring your dog a bone are simply people who shovel driveways and bring dogs bones. I know all of this. I also know what Gary's handwriting looked like, because I have a birthday card for my daughter in a box somewhere that I cannot bring myself to throw away and cannot bring myself to keep. I know what a monster's ordinary handwriting looks like. It looks like everyone else's. There is one more thing I want to say, and then I'm done. The block party photograph, the one with Gary and Marcus, red cups, late July, I almost posted it in the neighborhood Facebook group after the arrest because there was a lot of discussion happening there, and I thought people should see it, should understand the timeline, should see what it looked like. I didn't, because Marcus is in it, and he's smiling, and that smile belongs to him, not to the story of how he died. His sister has seen the photograph. I sent it to her privately and asked what she wanted me to do with it, and she said to keep it somewhere safe because it was one of the few recent pictures of him she didn't already have. So I have kept it, in a folder on my computer labeled with his name. Not Gary's, Marcus's, because that's whose story it actually is.